This is Join Us in France, episode 223. Bonjour, I'm Annie Sargent. Are you getting ready for a trip to Paris, Provence, Normandy? Somewhere else in France? On this podcast, you'll hear conversations about France. I am French. I live in France, in the fair city of Toulouse. So I believe in sharing boots on the ground reports that keep it real and helpful for your own trip planning. How often have you taken public transportation in France? Maybe never. Maybe you've been to France many times, but you always rent a car or use taxis. Maybe you know a lot about public transportation, but let me tell you what, my guest on today's episode, Lachlan Cooke, has tried every mode of public transportation in France and will explain how you can get around France using public transit. Many people in North America are not used to taking public transportation, but in France, trains, buses, and metros are often more convenient than using a car. They are faster, cheaper, and much less trouble. Show notes and photos for this episode are on joinusinfrance.com/223. 223. Join Us in France is brought to you by Patreon supporters and Addicted to France, the small group tour company for people who want to enjoy France to the fullest and with no stress. Check out our upcoming tours on May 7th and 8th, 2019 on addictedtofrance.com. Reminder, there won't be a new episode next Sunday. I need to take a week off to make time for some other projects. I'll tell you about those soon. And now here's my conversation with Lachlan.
Bonjour Annie.
Bonjour Lachlan, how are you today?
Très bien, merci. Thank you.
Très bien, très bien. Okay, today we are going to talk about getting around France using public transportation. And Lachlan, I'm told you're a bit of an expert in this because you've done it a lot.
I really enjoy figuring out transit in different places, so I wouldn't say I'm a complete expert, but I'm proficient, that's for sure.
You're proficient, and you've tried a lot of things, so that's wonderful. Okay, so we're going to be talking about buses, trains, and mostly trains, right? And the metro, of course, for Paris. So we'll split it up between Paris and outside of Paris. Is that what you had in mind?
Yes, exactly. I think Paris is sort of its own subject, and then the long-distance trains are a separate category.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get going. What do you want to tell us about the Paris Metro? I should say that there's been a couple of other episodes about public transportations within Paris itself. And I'll have to link them because I forgot the episode numbers right now, but I'll have to link them in the show notes.
Good. Well, Paris had the first transit in the world in 1662. The king gave permission for a couple of gentlemen to start carriage transport and charge for each seat on a set route.
Yes.
And they were running it every 6 to 8 minutes, and it got incredibly popular. So that's sort of the precursor to setting up the metro. And the metro was actually set up for the 1900 World Fair in Paris. And they built it fairly quickly, and it opened with 10 lines. And those 10 lines still exist, and to which 4 more have been added.
Oh, I didn't realize they opened with 10. Wow.
Yeah, it was really ambitious.
That's not the way they do it anymore in France. Nowadays, most cities will do one line and then maybe make it a little longer, do something that crosses it or that sort of thing.
Right. I think in the old days, it was easier to say, we're doing this and get out of the way.
Right.
And you can't really do that anymore.
That's right.
So Paris's metro is the second busiest in Europe. Moscow is the first, but but it carries the number I have from 2015 is 4.16 million passengers per day.
In Paris or in Moscow?
In Paris.
Oh, wow. That is a lot of people.
Right. That's a lot of people. And it's run by the RATP, which are good initials to remember because they have a good website.
Yeah.
And that stands for Régie et Autonomie des Transports Parisiens. You don't have to remember that one.
Yes, but I have to correct your French a little bit. Do you mind?
Yeah.
C'est
no, please.
Régie autonome des transports parisiens.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and actually I should say there are 14 basic lines and 2 B lines, but that's a technical detail. Let me give you a quick summary of the hours. Metro stations in Paris on average are 548 meters apart. So if you're reasonably agile, you can always walk to a metro station.
Yeah.
The hours, it starts at 5:30 in the morning and it goes till 1:15 in the evening.
Right.
That's on weekdays, and 2 a.m. on Friday and Saturdays. So good thing to remember if you're out late. The system's divided into 5 zones, and I don't want to get too technical. For most visitors, zone 1 and 2 are sort of the heart of Paris, and you don't have to worry about it too much.
Yeah.
The only thing you have to think about is Versailles is in zone 4, and the airport CDG, Charles de Gaulle, is Disney and Fontainebleau are in zone 5. So if you're going to those places, you need to think about it a little more.
Right. And if you're going to those places frequently, then you need to buy the proper pass. But if you're just using the RAR to get to Disney for one day, then obviously just buy the one ticket.
You can get a ticket.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that leads us into, okay, let's talk about tickets quickly. Individual tickets, for most people, if you're just using individual tickets, you can buy a carnet.
Right.
And that gives you 10 tickets for 14 euros and 90 cents, which is a discount off the price of individual tickets.
Right.
Of about 50 cents.
Right. So those are really good to do when you're looking around, when you're pecking around the machine to buy your tickets. They actually say T. The option you want is T. It looks like T dash something or other. That's the carnet.
Right. T plus, I think, is what it is.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So look for the T in the list. Because the last time I was there, I was like, well, how do people know that that's the carnet? They don't call it a carnet anymore on the screen.
Right. And remember, when you use those machines, that there is an option to select English, which can be helpful.
Of course.
Even for people who speak some French, it's a little complicated.
Yeah.
And also remember that most metro stations have an attendant who can help you. It's not necessarily at every entrance to the station. So sometimes you'll have to go to a different entrance to find the attendant booth.
That's a good point.
Second, here's another useful pass to know about. There's something called a Mobilis Day Pass. And for central Paris, that pass sells for €7.50 for the whole day.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be there for a day and you're going to ride the metro more than, I think it works out to 5 or 6 times, it might be worth just getting that.
Yep.
And you can, if you're going to go out to Versailles, you can get one that covers you for the whole day and goes up to zone 5, and it's a little more expensive. They go up to €17.50.
Right. And if you just buy the ticket to Versailles, I think it's like $7.50 or something. I can't remember the last time I did it, but it wasn't that much, yeah.
No. And then there's tourist-oriented Paris Visit Pass, which is quite expensive, but comes in different day configurations, and I think it includes some museum entries. That's a whole separate subject, so I won't want to go into that, but you can research that on Google.
I think Paris Visit does not include any museum. It's the Paris Pass that includes museums, yeah. So Paris Visit is just, the advantage of that one is that you can start it any day of the week. So if you arrive on a Wednesday, well, and if you buy the week long, then it's going to be Wednesday to Wednesday. Whereas Navigo Pass only starts on a Monday morning.
Right, and that's where we're headed next.
Yeah.
for those of you on Join Us in France who are probably repeat visitors like myself, I love the Navigo Pass. It's called the Navigo Découverte. And the card itself is €5, and you need a photo. So bring a passport photo, and you can
Recharge
get it at most metro stations,
right.
And then you have to charge it up, and it's €22.80 for a week. And as Annie just said, it runs Monday to Monday, and you can charge it up anytime through that week through to Thursday. So.
I didn't know that. They won't charge it up on Friday. That's weird.
No. But if you're using the Metro a lot, I mean, I've charged mine up on a Tuesday or a Wednesday and used it for the rest of the week and still felt like I got my money's worth from it.
Yeah, it's not very much. $22.80, really. I mean, honestly,
right.
No other public transportation in a major city is that cheap for the week.
Right. And the Navigo Découverte Pass is great because you just wave it over the thing and it's magic. It will also get you out to and from the airport, which is nice because it covers all 5 zones.
Even the week one?
Yeah, the week one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's one of the advantages. And, I find it super handy. And it just, you're not fumbling with little tickets and so on and so forth.
Right.
So 1 or 2 side notes. There are ticket inspectors in Paris. Typically, if you change trains at Bastille, you will get your ticket checked. So when you scan your ticket, make sure that you keep the current ticket with you or your pass with you because you will get checked. Yes.
Always do not throw away your transportation ticket until you have exited the metro system completely. You're up in the, on the street because they could check it at any point.
Right. So the nice thing about the Navigo Découverte is once you spend the €5 for the pass, you have it, and next time you go back to France, you can charge it up again.
Yep.
So I had one for 10 years. My last one lasted for 10 years.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
And it was great.
But you do have to bring a picture, and it's a smallish photo. It's like, the standard American size, but it doesn't matter. If the photo takes over the whole card, nobody cares. One other thing that you need to know is that you're supposed to sign it because if it's not signed and you have a prickly, whatever you call these people in English, who verify that you've paid, they might...
Yeah, fair inspector.
Yeah, inspectors. They might charge you a fine. So you have to attach your photo and sign it and put your name in there.
Yeah, so if you bring a standard passport photo with a little trimming with some scissors, it'll work. That's what I did.
Yeah. Now, I have to say that most of the time for me, when I'm in Paris, I walk so much in Paris, I only take the metro if I'm going, 5 stations or more. Typically, if I'm going fewer than 5 stations, I'm just going to walk. So I use the carnet so that I buy 10 tickets, and when I'm out of the 10 tickets, I buy another one. The advantage of that is that it's very cheap because it's, like you said, it's €1.50, not quite €1.50 per transportation. Per ticket, and you and I end up using maybe 2 a day most days. It's really
right.
Yeah, so it depends on what your habits are in Paris.
Right. I find that I often will pick an arrondissement to go to and take the metro out there and then walk for a while and take a train back and then do the same in the afternoon. So I found I was typically burning through a carnet in 2 days.
Right.
So
in that case,
the pass
it's worth
saves
it.
me a lot of money.
Yeah. In that case, it's very well worth it. Also, you can transfer between the metro and the bus system, but there's very arcane rules that apply. So if it rejects your ticket, well, it's just that something you did is against the rules. And we can't explain them all.
There are time limits on that.
Yeah. And one thing that's kind of weird is you can't, like, I remember one day I was really thirsty. I get off the bus because there was a bakery right there, and I buy a drink and I tried to get back on the bus and it wouldn't let me use the same ticket. So, I wouldn't have guessed that rule, but that's how it works. So if it rejects it, well, so be it. But with the Navigo Pass, you wouldn't have this problem. It would take it no matter what. Right.
Right. And I should say to the listeners, remember that all these prices and rules change.
Yeah.
So this is how they are now. My understanding is that the little yellow Metro tickets are going to go away in a few more years, and they're probably going to go more to smart card-based stuff just because it's easier to manage.
Right. Okay.
So stay tuned on that.
Right. Okay,
right,
so now we have the tickets. Let's talk about how do you know which direction you're going and where you're going and all of that.
Okay, so when you're trying to get on the Paris Metro, you can look at a paper map, and they'll give you one at each station for free. And there's also one posted at the entrance to every station, so you can check it. But the crucial thing you need to know is what's the end point of the line in the direction I want to go.
Right. The number of the line and what's the end point.
Right. And the numbers are also associated with a color to help you track it.
Right.
Right. So you need to know your endpoint, and you may want to get one of those little paper maps. But here's a great way to figure it out. Most of you have Google Maps on your phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if you look, you're used to navigating your car with Google Maps. You put in where you want to go, and you hit the directions button, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now, if you do that, exactly as if you were driving, when you get to the screen after the directions button, the second icon, the first icon in the upper left is a car, the second one is a bus or a train.
Yeah.
If you touch that icon, it will tell you how to get there by metro and by bus.
Right.
And it will give you a number of options.
Mm-hmm.
So you can pick the option you want and then touch that, and it will literally tell you how far it is to walk to where to pick up the metro, how many stops you have to go, and where to get off.
Google Maps even tells you if you're better off being at the front of the train or the back of the train, depending on where you're changing.
Right. Sometimes I haven't run into that, but I'll tell you what
Citymapper tells you that for sure. I don't know if Google Map does.
That was going to be my next recommendation, but most of you already have Google Maps on your phone, so that's why I mention it, because it will work. And so far, I travel a lot, and I've been able to use it in Hanoi, Saigon, Tokyo, most of Italy, all kinds of places. The one place it does not work, oddly enough, is Lyon.
Really?
So in Lyon, you need to get another program. But everywhere else it works.
Oh, wow. I wonder what it is with Lyon.
Yeah. And there are some other pieces of information that Google Maps often provides you. And one of those is when you get off where you're going, you'll find that each metro station has a number of exits.
Yeah.
And most of us have gotten lost getting out of a metro station. It's sort of inevitable. But if you can pay attention to the exit suggestion listed on Google Maps, you'll generally be exiting in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And some of these exits are far-flung. I don't know anyone who's exited from Les Halles and hasn't gotten lost at least 10 times.
Well, people who live there and they just go like robots, but because they figured it out and they always do the same. But if you need to make any change at Châtelet-Les Halles, it's a pain. And actually, it's the one inconvenient. There's this little hotel that I really enjoyed in the Marais, and we mentioned it in the last episode. Well, it was episode 218. It won't be the last by the time this is published. But in episode 218, we mentioned a hotel called l'Hôtel de Neuve in Le Marais. And it's wonderful, but it's on this line that... okay, which line is it? Is it line 1? It's probably line 1. And it's the only line there. And so you always end up having to change at Châtelet-Les Halles.
Oh.
And it's a pain in the behind. I mean, the first few days I was so lost. Then after a while, I got it, but it takes you a few days just to get familiarized with. So, if you can, avoid Châtelet-Les Halles.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing to remember is if for some reason you don't know the exit number, when you get off on the platform, somewhere on the platform or as you walk out, there'll be something called the plan du quartier, the plan of the quarter. And that will show you where each exit pops up in the street.
Right.
So it's worth taking a quick look at that if you're not sure, because exits can be widely far apart.
Yes. Some places
So
especially some place like around L'Étoile. Oh goodness,
Right.
that one is like the stops are like a kilometer away from each other. The exits.
Right. All right. So let me just say one thing. Paris Metro is sort of famous for having some pickpockets on it. How you position yourself can really affect whether you have problems or not. My personal preference is to be, if I can, at one end of a car or another and tuck myself into a corner. That means I've got sort of three sides protected and I only have to watch my front.
Yeah.
If you get in the middle of the car, go across the car and try to put your back against the far door. Because if you stand right near the exit, the standard strategy for these guys is to wait for a stop, grab something, run out the door just before it closes, and then you can't really do anything.
That's right.
So try not to be right near the door unless you're about to get off.
And put your phone away in your pocket. Hold it in your hand,
Exactly.
but have it away in your pocket so it's not an obvious, like, they are not looking to steal your big luggage. They are looking to steal anything small. So if they can slide your laptop out of your bag or your a camera, maybe something small. They're always looking for something small that they can resell.
Right. And then the other thing on that is be careful anytime there's a distraction going on, because that's a favorite tactic.
Yeah.
You know, people will create a distraction in one place and everyone's looking at that while they're grabbing stuff from you. So anyway, nothing to worry about too much, but a little awareness will save you a lot of grief.
And a very good way to avoid losing too much is not to bring too much. So
Exactly.
be judicious about what you carry in your pockets and in your bag. Don't take, all of your cash, your passport, your credit cards, your work badge, your U.S. driver's license. All of this stuff needs to stay in the hotel safe. Just keep, don't take much with you. And then even if you do get robbed, because even people who are very good at this get robbed,
Exactly.
you won't lose that much. If you have $20, well, you've lost $20. But if you have 2,000,
Yeah.
So, right.
Or worse, your passport or something that will then take 2 or 3 days to get replaced.
Right. And I know that technically in France, you're supposed to have ID on you at all times. For the love of God, just take a photocopy. I have never met a single human being who has gotten in trouble for not having the original passport in their pocket. They know that we have thieves. They will not give you a hard time. Just say, look, this is my photocopy. I can go to the gendarmerie or the police station and produce the original. They will understand this is not a big deal. Do not travel with your passport in your pockets.
Right. All right. So let's talk just a little bit about buses in Paris, because one of the great part of the metro is you avoid a lot of traffic. The downside is you don't see anything. So buses can be a fun option because you actually get to see stuff. And as Annie just mentioned, one of my favorite things to do on the bus is to ride along until I see something interesting and hop out at the next stop and walk back to it.
Yep.
So Paris has 63 bus lines and 4,000 buses. And if you are out late, they have night buses. And if you go on the RATP website, you can see the chart for the night buses.
Yep.
So the buses are numbered between 20 and 96. And much to my surprise, when I was doing research for this show, the numbers actually mean something.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
I didn't either. So the first number relates to where the bus starts its route, and the second number is the end point. And there's a list of these numbers, and the best thing to do is look on Wikipedia because it's complicated. So I won't go into it
is it like
here.
by arrondissement?
Yeah, it's by locations. And if you look on Wikipedia and type in buses, RATP, Wikipedia, you'll find the list and the explanation.
You provide me with the link. I will put it in the show notes.
Right. So the thing to remember, most people get overwhelmed by the buses because they feel like they have to know every bus in Paris, and you really don't.
No, you don't.
So when you're out wherever you're staying, look at the numbers of the stops near you, because those are the ones that are going to be most useful for you. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to find there are a couple lines that are super useful. So 2 of those lines are the 96, which starts in Montparnasse, goes through Saint-Germain, right, and through the Marais.
Yep.
And I find that one super useful.
Yep.
And
they don't
the
have
other
enough
one
of
is
them, though. I wish they doubled the amount of buses on that one. But anyway.
Right. And the other one that's super useful is the 69, which goes from the Eiffel Tower all the way to Père Lachaise.
Yeah. Yep. Excellent bus lines. And the 69 stops almost everywhere visitors might want to go. I mean, not everywhere, but a lot of them.
Right.
Yeah.
But, for instance, Rick Steves recommends if you want to do a cheap tour of Paris, take the 69.
Yeah.
And ride it from end to end, and you'll cover everything for the price of a metro ticket.
Right. Or the 96. I would do both. If you're going to be in that kind of mindset, you know, I mean, the hop-on, hop-off buses are fine, too, but they cost a lot of money compared to the price of a metro ticket. And it is the same tickets that you use on the bus and on the metros, by the way.
It is, and the Navigo Pass will do them. And when you get on the bus, the protocol is to get on, if you can, through the front door. Mm-hmm. And you want to say bonjour to the bus driver, because that's considered polite behavior. Yep. And then you want to scoot towards the back. Right. So do not stand right next to the fare box. Right. Get to the back of the bus.
Right. And most Paris buses will actually say the next stop is this, and how many minutes to the end of the line, and that sort of information.
Right. And remember the wonderful Google Maps I talked about.
Yes.
You can pull up your phone and look at the blue dot so that you're sure you're getting off where you want to get off.
Yep.
Yep.
Very good.
So when you're doing transit in Paris and in other places, I really strongly recommend you do what it takes to have cellular data. Yeah. Because it's really hard to do this kind of stuff well if you don't have access to mapping and so on and so forth.
Right. And most metro stations in Paris have 4G reception.
True. So, there's coverage also usually when you're on the train.
Yes. Some places don't, but most places do. So it's good if you need to start a new search while you're moving, it will probably work.
Right. So wrapping up the Paris part of this, the apps you should have are Google Maps, obviously, City Mapper, which Annie mentioned.
Yep.
And then I recommend getting the RATP app.
Yeah.
Partly because it has all the maps, and it also has a section that will show you traffic delays. Yeah. So if there are problems, or there's a strike or a riot or something like that, it's worth having a quick look to see if things are running how they should.
Right. And they also give you real-time information if you're here at a time when there's a strike or there's some sort of demonstration going on in the city. They will tell you that. So it's more up to date. The RATP app gives you the latest information.
Right. Excellent.
With the buses, sometimes the bus driver will tell you to get off because they're going to go on a break, or it's the end of their shift or something. Just get off and wait for the next one.
Right. And one thing that's really nice in Paris is almost every station has a little electronic signboard which will tell you how long it's going to take for the next bus to arrive.
Yeah. They're not always functioning properly, but most of the time, most of them work most of the time. Let's put it that way.
Right. And we should mention that metro trains on average come between 4 and 6 minutes during normal hours, and it's a little less on Sundays and weekends.
Right. And they're really long, so they can take a lot of passengers. Right.
And we should also mention, for a lot of you, I travel alone and I travel light, so I always take the RER to the airport. Mm-hmm. And it takes a little under an hour, and if you have the Navigo Découverte, you've already paid for it. So for me, that works great.
Right.
But the caveats are you got to be able to carry your bag up and down a bunch of stairs, and it takes a little bit.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's doable.
It's doable, but I recommend that. I mean, I'm 53, so I'm not at the age where I like to carry heavy stuff up and downstairs, and
Right.
and so if I have luggage, I will take a taxi, and the taxis have set rates as well, so they're not that expensive. But
Right.
that's just a personal choice.
And a lot of it depends how close you are to an RER station.
Yeah.
If you can go to the RER station immediately and get on, it makes it a whole lot easier than if you have to take a few metro lines to get there.
It
So
sure
anyway,
does.
just a note.
Yeah, yep. Very good. All right, so now we're going to move on to talking about transportation outside of Paris to the rest of the country. Let's talk about the trains in general. Did you also want to mention regional buses or just the trains?
We can mention regional buses a little down the road. I think the trains are the most important thing because that's not only the most comfortable, but what people will enjoy the most.
Yeah. Yes. All right.
All right. So the trains are run by SNCF, Société Nationale de Chemin de Fer Français.
Yes.
And they are, there are a few different classes of trains.
Yes.
And the reason you need to know this is because some of them require reservations and some of them don't.
Correct.
So the local trains are referred to as TER.
Yep.
And they don't sell out. You don't need reservations. And there's no price difference whether you buy the ticket at the station or ahead of time.
Correct. Yeah,
So-
these are usually regional trains. So to go between Toulouse and I think the furthest TER goes to Auch, which is an hour and 20 minutes away by car. So it's probably the same by train. And then beyond that, it's not the same service.
Right. And with TER trains, remember when you'll buy your ticket at the station and then you're looking for a yellow box which will validate your ticket.
Yes.
They say composté, right?
Yes.
So it's very important that you validate the ticket because
it stamps it with the date when you took it. But otherwise the ticket
Right.
is reusable. I mean, the ticket is not timed in any way. It's just like a metro ticket. You can use it anytime.
Right. And my understanding is once you validate it, you have sort of 24 hours of validity. But the fare inspectors on the train will be looking to make sure you validated it. So
Yes.
If you have any doubt at all about your ticket, validate it, because if you validate a ticket that you didn't need to validate, it won't matter.
Correct. And I'll put a picture of the validating machines on the website.
Right.
It's a yellow machine.
Right. So the high-speed trains, which are really terrific, because if you want to go all the way across France, say from Paris to Nice or somewhere, you want a high-speed train. And those are called TGV, Train de Grande Vitesse. Mm-hmm. And those generally require reservations.
Yeah.
And the reservations are generally cheaper if you buy more in advance.
Correct.
So technically speaking, tickets for TGVs are available 92 days in advance of the train.
Right.
Now, take that with a grain of salt because they tend to get released in batches, and it's not always 92 days.
Mm-hmm. Right, but you
So-
can't say, I want to buy my train ticket for next year.
No,
It won't show anything. It won't show you those dates.
right.
They'll
So
be
now
all
here's-
grayed out, and you'll think, oh, no, there won't be any trains after the 12th of May. No, that's not it. It's just that they're not open for sale yet.
Right. So don't get in a panic about that. And they tend to be slower releasing tickets at schedule changes, one of which happens in the first week of December. So tickets for the spring will take a while to release after that. For instance, just yesterday, the tickets got released for April, May, and June.
Right.
So, okay, so the thing you need to know about TGV tickets is they come in 3 fare classes. And you need to be careful of which fare class you buy because some of those classes don't allow any changes. So it's like airline tickets. So
yeah.
I don't want to go into an exhaustive thing on that because it's complicated, but you should be aware that if you're flying in and planning to take a train, you might want to get a fare class that has some flexibility.
Yes.
So the 3 fare classes are Prems, which don't allow changes or refunds, Loisir, and Pro. And Loisir is kind of a semi-flex where you'll pay a little bit for a change, but it's doable. And Pro is sort of fully refundable the whole bit. Usually the Pro tickets are sufficiently more expensive that it's probably not worth going, fully refundable. But if you're flying in and your plane might be late or something, you probably want to get a ticket with some flexibility.
Yeah, and that's very important. My sister-in-law planned to do that, and she was flying into CDG, used the CDG train station to go to Nantes, but her plane was late, and so it was pretty complicated for her to then change and get on a different train.
Right. So let's talk about how to buy the tickets. I want to recommend strongly that before you buy any tickets at all, you go to a website called The Man in Seat 61.
Yes.
And this is the primary train website for the whole world, and the guy really has a lot of information. So if you Google The Man in Seat 61 France, you'll see something called The Beginner's Guide to French Trains, and it's very much worth reading what he has to say.
Yes, it's very good. And I'm trying to get him on the podcast, but...
Oh, that would be cool.
I'm not a celebrity, so I don't know if he'll respond or not. We'll see.
Right. So a couple things you should know about French trains. One is, don't show up 2 minutes before for a TGV because they usually check your tickets before you get onto the platform, and it'll take a little while. Second, when you get to the station, you're going to find that your train number is up there, but it won't show the track. And 20 minutes before departure, they'll put the track up. Mm-hmm. So you need to be sort of ready to head for the track 20 minutes before departure, and you'll see everyone standing around the monitors in the station waiting for the track number to be displayed. Right,
and it's usually the same track always, so the people who are used to it, but they'll still wait because just in case they move it,
Right. And as a foreigner, you probably won't know what that track is, although you can ask people and sometimes they'll get you close, but you want to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Then once you're on the track, your ticket's going to have a car number and a seat number. Mm-hmm. And on the track, there'll be a little lighted picture of the train, and it's going to show you which car is going to stop where on the platform.
Right.
So what you want to do is look at that picture and position yourself roughly where your car is going to stop. Because sometimes the train comes in, and you've got about a minute or two to get on it.
Right.
And those platforms can be quite long.
Right. So if you're, if I'm taking the train in Toulouse to go to Paris, well, that's the end of the line. So the train is going to sit there for half an hour. But if, for example, I'm picking up the train in Mazamet, where it stops, some of the TGVs stop, then I have to be in the right place. I mean, you can always move around within the train, but it's not as comfortable.
No, and especially if you have luggage, it really works a lot better if you're at the right car. Yeah. So just notice that and get yourself to the right track. Basically, the train picture will show you the car numbers next to a letter. The letters will be on the platform. You walk down to your letter, and when the train pulls in, the car you need to get into will be roughly in front of that letter.
Yep.
Okay, and for those of you taking the Eurostar, they have their own website, and you definitely need reservations for that.
Right.
So buying French train tickets, in the past, the SNCF has referred you to Rail Europe in the U.S., which charges a fee. Mm-hmm. So I think that's changed now, and Annie likes We SNCF.
Yep.
And I played with it yesterday, and it didn't seem to refer me to Rail Europe. So that's a good site to try.
Yeah.
And they have an app, and you want to get the app because then you can get your ticket on your phone, which makes your life a lot easier.
Yes, I would even recommend that with the We SNCF, you install the app and you buy the ticket from the app. I mean, it will work also. They will send you an email, and then from the email you can get to the app. But if you buy it from the app on your phone, then everything is there, and it's really, really easy.
Right. So do that. The other apps that I've found to be extremely useful are one called Trainline, and that one also has an app and is British-based and was started by 3 guys who thought they could do it better than SNCF. So Trainline has an app. It's called Train now. And there's one more called Loco 2 also has an app.
Right.
So those are all good. Then let's take one little aside. You know how they're discount airlines? Well, they're now discount TGVs, and those are called Ouigo.
Yes.
And they can be really reasonable.
Yeah.
But just like discount airlines, they have a bunch of rules. So when you look at Trainline or we SNCF, you're going to see sometimes it'll say we on the train instead of TGV. And if you see that, make sure you read the rules, because if you're carrying anything more than a carry-on bag, you need to either pay for luggage or they're going to charge you when you get there.
Oh, wow.
So
I've never used those. Okay.
Yeah. But if you just have a carry-on, it's fine. And I used it. But the Ouigo trains tend to not allow you to change your ticket. So, sometimes I was looking yesterday and I could get to Nice for sort of 20 euros.
Wow.
But if I wasn't on that train, I was going to lose the 20.
Right. So,
that can be great if it's, 3 days before and you're pretty certain when you're going. But if it's 6 months before, that's probably not, that's a gamble.
Yeah.
So pay attention to that, because the other thing with Ouigo trains is they require you to be there 30 minutes before the train. So if you're someone who's chronically late, that may not work for you.
So is it we.go or is it Ouigo? Let's see.
It's Ouigo, all one word.
.com. Huh. I have seen that logo and I have seen that on trains. I just never use them.
Right. So on Trainline, when you search a destination, Ouigo trains don't run between all destinations. But if you search one where they run, it will be in with the Trainline listings, and you'll see one fare that's really cheap, and you'll go, wow. But pay attention to that. So this is why I recommend using Trainline, Loco 2, SNCF. Try searching things in different apps, because you'll often find a little bit different availability. Right.
And I'll put all of those links in the show notes for this episode.
And the Ouigo trains can save you a lot of money if they happen to be doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Next thing. So that covers the trains pretty well. The regional buses. France has a lot of buses, and there are places. For instance, I just went from Annecy to Chamonix, and the train service is very awkward and it takes a long time. But there's a bus that goes pretty much straight there with one stop. So, and it's cheap. It's half the price of the train, and it's faster. So the way to find the buses, the easy way is there's an app called Go Euro. And it also has the trains, and you can select for trains or buses. So it's a great way to compare trains and buses.
Oh, very good.
And Go Euro is really nice because it also allows you to buy the ticket right on the app too.
Right.
So that's another app to have in your arsenal. And you just put it on your phone and it's there. And when you need it, a lot of times, for instance, with buses, if it's midweek or something and you're pretty sure it's not going to be sold out, you're just using the app to make sure what the times are. You'll go to the bus station, say in Annecy, and just walk up to the counter and buy the ticket. Right. But if if you're nervous about being on a certain bus or something, you can buy it on the app too. I've done it both ways.
Sure.
So that's a good thing to know about. There's a pretty robust network. And the other reason I want to mention the buses is because France is famous for having strikes. And if you're caught in the midst of a strike, you want to be able to see if there's a bus that will do what you need to do.
Right. Very often the buses are not on strike because only one section of the bus market belongs to SNCF. And even they don't go on strike because they don't have the same...
Union.
Right. Exactly. It's a union. They're
Right.
not protected by the same rules, and so they have no reason to go on strike because they have no protections. Whereas the train people do have a lot of protections that they're trying to protect.
Right. So it's useful to have that in your arsenal, even if you don't plan to use it. You may find it useful at a time. So strikes. Here's how to figure...
Yeah, and I was also going to say that there's also places in France where the trains don't go anymore, but they've usually replaced it with a regional bus.
Right. And the buses, there's a couple bus companies. I think they all show up on the Go Euro app, but there's Flixbus, Flix bus, and there's WeBus, which is an SNCF subsidiary.
Right.
But I think if you use the Go Euro app, they find them all for you, so you don't have to look at the individual sites.
Very good. That sounds like a good app.
So let me just give a quick note on strikes because this could be useful for people. So it's worth checking ahead of time if you're arriving on the day of a strike, and if you can possibly move your ticket by a day. Typically, French train strikes are a day or two and then a day or two of normal.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, if you know there's a strike the day of your arrival, if you just shift your plane a day, you can avoid the whole mess.
Yeah.
On the days that there are strikes, there will still be trains. So it's not the end of the earth. It's just they're going to run about 1 in 3 trains, which means when you do get on the train, it's going to be horribly crowded.
Yeah.
And I've done this and it, ended up standing in the aisle from the airport all the way down to Tours because I was going to the Loire Valley area and it wasn't a lot of fun, but we got there.
Yeah.
But it took hours and it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
So the website to check for strike information is called C'est la Grève.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty good website, and you can sort by area and by industry and, more information than you want. But you can also, if you hit calendar, you can see the calendar of strikes and you can kind of get a feel for it.
Right.
But really, if you possibly can avoid traveling on strike days, you'll make your life a lot easier.
Right. And the advantage to buying your train ticket with the SNCF app is that it will send you real-time updates on what trains are running and what trains are not in case of a strike. That's why I think it's wise to buy through that app rather than another one, because you don't know if you get the tickets through some other app, and there are some good ones, they might not update their app fast enough. Whereas the we.sncf, it'll be up to date.
Right. And then also we should mention that we.sncf is generally for buying tickets. There's another app which is just SNCF. And that is more focused on traffic and train-specific information, not ticket purchases.
Yeah.
So it's worth having the SNCF app because you can see whether your train's running late and so on. And you just put in your train number.
That's a great tip.
Yep, and all of these are free, so no reason not to try them out. If you don't like them, you can delete them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Good. Well, one other app that I think people should know about that's worthwhile to have. There's an app, if you don't know about it, it's called Rome to Rio.
Ah, yes.
The word Rome, the letter 2, and Rio. And Rome to Rio, it's also on the web, rometorio.com. Basically lets you figure out transit between pretty much any 2 points on the globe. So if you're going somewhere unfamiliar and you sort of want to see what the possibilities are,
right,
Rome to Rio is a great starting point.
Yeah, it would be good, like if you want to go from Paris to, I don't know, Budapest, and you have no idea. They would tell you. They would show you different possibilities, and it's a really good app.
Right.
I haven't looked at their app, but their website is well done.
Yeah, it's the same thing basically.
Yeah.
But very useful because they also give you links to the agencies that run those buses and so on and so forth. So,
yeah. Wonderful.
So, good. I hope that helps people.
Yeah, I think you've given a lot of tips. It's wonderful,
Yeah.
and I will put your notes on the website so people can look at all that. I just want to end with in praise of train travel in France. It's so good. I mean, yes, I'm a little bit spoiled because when I do it, I just do first class between Toulouse and Paris. But it's 4 hours. It's so much less hassle than the airplane. Really, from my house to the center of Paris takes me. So I need to leave my house an hour before the time my train leaves. So it's going to take me 5.5 hours, more or less, to get between my house to my hotel. It's wonderful because the train takes longer than the airport. Getting to the airport and waiting for security and all of that takes longer than it does with a train. And the train is so much more comfortable, especially first class, obviously.
Yes, I would urge people to use trains many times because the TGV goes so fast. It goes 300 kilometers an hour. If you're going, a fair distance across France, you're going to be so much better off taking the train. And then if you need to rent a car, you can rent one where you're going for a day or two.
Yeah.
But trains travel city center to city center. Mm-hmm. The problem with airports is they're almost never in the city center.
Right.
So as Annie is saying, if you look at the block to block time, the train is often faster than going out to the airport, waiting 2 hours, going through security, flying, and then getting in from the airport in the other place.
And when you're in a train, you can get up. You can go to the restaurant car and have a coffee or something. And
you can see the scenery.
Yes, it's just so much more civilized. I can't say enough good stuff about train travel within France. I'm sure it's just as good going. I mean, I've also gone to Barcelona, and it's the same experience, pretty much. It's a TGV train. If you get first class, you're in, you have a nice big white seat, and you have a nice big tablet, and you have individual plugs, and it's wonderful. And you can have your carry-on under your seat. If you have a bigger suitcase, it needs to be a little further away, but I never leave anything valuable in the other suitcase, and there's not train theft. I mean, like we said before, the thieves are not after your big luggage. They're after your small items that they can sell. They don't want your coat,
Yeah. And same for Spain. I've gone all across Spain in the trains, and they're quite good also.
Yeah.
We should mention there are Eurail passes. The rules just changed for 2019, and there are now either a global pass, which covers most of Europe, or a single country pass, and not much in between. The biggest problem with the Eurail pass is you still have to make a reservation to go on the TGVs,
right?
And you have to pay a reservation fee. So at this point, you still kind of have to go through a whole thing to get yourself on the train. I just haven't found it to be worth the hassle. I'd rather just buy the ticket and be done with it.
I agree. But I had a young a cousin of my husband's who was visiting all through Europe, who came, it was maybe 3 years ago, so it's been a few years, but he had a Eurail pass, and it was a pain because very few trains were actually eligible for the type of fare he could get.
Right.
So when you log on, it tells you, okay, what's your customer number or whatever. And then it shows you a few trains you can get, but not enough, and it was around Christmas time, and it was just difficult. So I don't think they're worth it most of the time.
No, I think if you're traveling a lot and you're hopping around, but if you're just doing a few trips, you're probably just going to find it easier to buy a ticket and be done with it.
Yep. Agreed.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lachlan, for coming back on the show and sharing all this good information. It's really helpful to have a clear view of how these things work in general. And then for the details, you always have to drill down a little bit yourself. But I think we've...
Hopefully this will give people places to start looking.
Yeah.
And it really is an approachable thing to do, and it's really fun, and not having to worry about a car and park a car and pay to park a car and pay for gas. deal with speeding tickets and so on is just fantastic.
Yeah.
The economics change if you have a family of 4, but as a solo traveler, every time I think about getting a car, I do the math, and it's just so much easier and cheaper to use transport.
Oh yeah, and it's pleasant. You're not responsible. You don't have to worry about. There's many things that you don't have to worry about when you're in a train that you would have to worry about when you're in a car. So.
Right.
So.
And for example, if you go to Nice, they have a 7-day transit pass for €15.
Wow.
And that pass covers the whole Riviera except for Monaco, where you have to pay another €50. But you can take buses all over the Riviera on that one pass.
Wow.
So if you stay for 5 or 6 days, it pays for itself really quickly.
Yeah, the Provence area has really good transportation systems. Regional buses, they're very good. They used to have a lot of trains. I don't think they have that many trains anymore, but they have a lot of really good regional buses.
Right, and those are all on Google Maps, and I went to all the little towns I could think of, like Villefranche-sur-Mer and Vence and Saint-Paul-de-Vence, and on, all by local bus, all on that pass.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Lachlan. You've been wonderful again.
All right. Well, thank you for having me back, and a pleasure, and I hope people enjoy riding the trains and buses.
Yeah, send us your picture in front of the bus or the train. we want to see your face, your happy face.
Okay. I'll see if I can dig one up.
Excellent. Thank you, Lachlan.
All right. Bye, Annie.
Au revoir.
Au revoir. Merci.
Merci à vous. Thank you, David Edgeworth, Doug Wallner, John Calvin James, Miriam Burin, and Chito Velasco for pledging to support the show on Patreon this week. And my thanks also to all the other patrons who support the show month after month. Thank you so much for giving back. Would you buy me a coffee if we met in real life? You can do that by supporting the show on Patreon for as little as $2 per month. Visit patreon.com/join us, Patreon. Join us, no spaces or dashes, to see the different reward tiers. And thank you so much for giving back. My thanks also for your generous one-time donation, Tyler Caldwell. I borrowed the boots on the ground turn of phrase from the comment that he left with his donation. He also said, "Don't get burned out, please." And of course, I don't think I will. Thank you, though. You know what else I need from you? I need good ideas for new episodes, and I'm always looking for listeners to raise their hand and volunteer to talk about their trip with me. If you've got an idea for a show, email me, Annie@joinusinfrance.com. I'd love to hear from you. There's been a nice uptick of shares of various episodes. Thank you for getting the word out about the show. You are my only advertising. And if you share photos of France, of your vacation to France on social media, be sure to tag me, #JoinUsInFrance. As you know, because you are listening to me right now, you can hear Join Us in France anywhere you get your podcasts. But if you want to help other people find the show, listen to the show, tell them that they can listen on Spotify, Pandora, Alexa, Google Home, YouTube, and of course on the website joinusinfrance.com. Have a great week of trip planning, and I will not talk to you next week, but the Sunday after that. Au revoir. The Join Us in France Travel Podcast is written and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2019 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.